The night falls, not a sound to be heard, only the whistling of the wind through the cracks of the old door, as if it's whispering a warning I can't yet decipher. I stand there, in the darkened room, my trembling hands clutching a crumpled piece of paper, the only remnant of a past I once thought untouchable. Outside, the darkness swallows everything, but I feel it, an invisible threat. They think I'll give up? I mutter to myself, my voice catching in my throat, rage and fear blending into a fire blazing in my chest. But they don't know that the darkness doesn't break me, it makes me stronger. Have you ever felt the whole world turn its back on you, just for being who you are? Have you ever faced something that seemed unbeatable, yet heard a call from deep within, urging you to fight? This isn't just my story. It's the roar of the forgotten, the trampled, the erased from their own history. And now, I invite you to join me in this battle. Leave a comment with the number 9, so we know you're ready to step into the twists of this tale. Don't forget to hit the like button on the video and subscribe to the channel right now, because what's coming will keep you glued. A dark secret, a terrifying conspiracy, and a fight where only the strongest survive. Are you ready? Let's turn the first page together. I am Jeremiah Jackson, 38 years old, a black man born and raised in the poor outskirts of Stone Hollow, Georgia. My job is a data analyst, a career I've sweated and cried to build, despite the doubtful stares and whispers behind my back that a guy like you can't amount to much. My hometown, with its red dirt and sprawling cotton fields, is where my ancestors toiled as slaves, where my grandfather bought back every piece of land with his calloused hands to build our family farm. It's not just land. It's blood. It's history. A reminder that we fought to survive in a world that always wants to push us down. Now, I live with my wife and kids in a small house near the farm, but every work trip away from home fills me with unease. Not because of the job, but because of what I leave behind. The crunch of gravel under my tires sounds like breaking bones today, an odd, jarring noise unlike any other day. My black pickup truck rounds the final bend on Pinecrest Lane, and there it is before me, the family farm, or rather what used to be ours. A massive concrete block, towering high, rises from where white cotton fields once stood, its glass frames glinting like hundreds of cold eyes watching me. I slam on the brakes, park on the shoulder, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turn pale against my dark skin. The farm, where I grew up, where I ran barefoot through the rows of soil, is gone. In its place stands a 5-story hotel, with perfectly trimmed lawns, foreign decorative trees, and a sprawling parking lot like a declaration that everything I once knew has been wiped away. Bright orange barriers surround the site, and workers in hard hats move briskly like ants in a colony. My head spins. How could this happen? I was only gone for 2 months, an urgent data analysis project in Tokyo that my family needed to pay off debts and hold on to the land. Before I left, Lena and I checked everything, locked every legal door, or so I thought. This farm has belonged to my family for 5 generations. Every inch soaked in the blood and sweat of black folks who lived and died to keep it. A worker, white, with straw blonde hair, notices me and approaches, holding a clipboard like it's his shield. "What do you want?" he asks, his tone a mix of curiosity and caution, his eyes scanning me as if gauging whether I belong here. I step out of the truck, my worn boots hitting the ground, my legs shaking like they might give out. "This is my family's land," I say, my voice calm but firm, holding back the anger boiling in my chest. "I'm Jeremiah Jackson." The worker steps back, visibly uneasy. "Oh, you're the landowner?" He hesitates, as if the word landowner doesn't fit his picture of a black man like me. Before I can respond, my phone buzzes. A text from Lena. "Jeremiah. Emergency. Call me now." But I can't tear my eyes away from the hotel. A concrete scar rising from my ancestors' soil like a living insult. I step closer, my boots treading on what was once fertile earth, now just gravel and dry dust. Each step feels like a knife twisting in my gut. This hotel isn't just a building, it's a declaration of war, a message that someone thinks they can take what isn't theirs, just because of who I am, because of the color of my skin. Near the site entrance, a large sign catches my eye. Oak Ridge Community Development Project, approved by the HOA Council. The name Karen Harrington is in bold, just below Project Director. My mind starts piecing it together. Karen, the HOA president, a white woman with a fake smile and a sneer in her eyes. She'd come to the farm once, standing at our rickety fence, complaining about weeds and mud smells ruining the neighborhood. She'd sent dozens of warning letters, threatening fines for petty things like an unpainted fence or grass 2 inches too tall. I always knew she didn't like my family, didn't like how a black family owned land among her wealthy white neighbors. But this stealing the whole farm outright goes beyond anything I could have imagined. On a makeshift table nearby, I spot a stack of papers. Curiosity pulls me closer, despite the worker's nervous glance. Building permits, zoning documents, approval stamps. Each sheet tells part of a story I'm desperate to understand. A small note about a community improvement zone stops me cold. Something's off about the language, not outright illegal, but deliberately crafted. I sense the discrimination in every line. A plot not just to take the land, but to erase my family's presence, as if we don't deserve to be here. The worker mutters, "You're not supposed to be here." But his voice is weak, unconvincing. I turn, forcing a tight smile, my eyes cold. "I'll leave soon," I say, but in my mind, I know I'm not letting this go. Driving back to town, my head swims with questions. How long have they been planning this? What legal tricks did Karen pull? And most importantly, how do I prove this is wrong? Lena's text still sits unanswered. I need information, need to know what happened in the 2 months I was gone. This isn't just about land, it's about justice, about protecting what my ancestors bled for against those who've always seen us as outsiders. A billboard flashes by as I drive. Oak Ridge, growing together. The bitter irony almost makes me scoff. Growing together means stealing land without asking? I pull into a small town cafe, where curious stares from a few white guys follow my every step. I sit, pull out a pen and paper, and start jotting down dates, observations, questions. Each line is a step toward unraveling this mess. The farm isn't just land. It's our history, my kids' future, proof that a black family can stand tall in a world that wants us on our knees. The waitress, a middle-aged white woman, refills my coffee. "Rough day?" she asks, her tone half curious, half wary. I look up, flashing a stiff smile. "Just getting started," I reply, my voice low but resolute. Karen doesn't know I'm about to fight back, and I'll battle with everything I've got. Not just for the land, but for my family's very existence in this town. The dusty filing cabinet in the shed now feels like a hidden treasure chest. Sunlight streams through the wooden slats, illuminating floating dust motes like they're telling a story. I carefully pull out a stack of old documents my grandfather kept all those years. My fingers trace the edges of property maps, each crease a tale of my family's bond with this land. I spread them across the desk, sorting through decades of paperwork. Others might have tossed them long ago, but I always had a hunch they mattered. My grandfather was meticulous, always ready for the unexpected. Now, that foresight might be my only hope. The first sheet is a hand-drawn property map from 1938. Detailed pencil lines mark the farm's boundaries, with scribbled notes in the margins. I remember Grandpa telling me about the times he fought to keep the land during hard years, when local white folks tried to force him to sell cheap or threatened to burn the farm if he didn't play nice. "Knowledge is your strongest weapon, Jeremiah," he'd said, his gnarled hand pointing to these very papers. Looking closer, I spot a pattern. The HOA didn't just pop up. They've been quietly chipping away at individual land rights for years, especially from black families like ours. I find old meeting minutes, letters, and legal notices, all painting a clearer picture of Karen Harrington's greed. Not just to take land, but to erase people like me. A faded yellow envelope catches my eye. Inside is a series of letters recounting a property dispute from decades ago. The HOA had tried similar tricks back then, claiming land was abandoned or inefficiently used to seize it for community development. But someone had stopped them, and these documents reveal how. I pull out my phone, snapping pictures of each page, my hands steady though my mind reels. Every page is a potential piece of the puzzle. Lena will help me sort it later. She's good at spotting connections I might miss. The shed suddenly feels different. These papers aren't just old junk anymore. They're evidence, weapons in a war I didn't ask for but now must win at all costs. The sound of crunching gravel outside makes me freeze. Heart pounding, I quickly gather the documents. Through the shed's small window, I see a white SUV with an HOA sticker parked near the property line. Karen Harrington steps out, her expensive sunglasses glinting in the midday sun, her high heels sinking into the soft earth where my cotton grew just weeks ago. She walks with the confidence of someone who thinks they own everything, as if this land has long been hers. I hide in the shadows, watching her jot something on a clipboard, her eyes scanning like she's inventorying her own property. The hotel looms in the distance, a grotesque concrete mass amid the peaceful countryside, a reminder that they don't just want the land, they want to erase my existence. My phone buzzes. A text from Daniel, my lawyer. Found something good. Call me now. I know I have to be careful. One wrong move, and Karen could label me a troublemaking black man. The perfect excuse to legitimize their actions. Grandpa taught me that patience is strategy, not weakness. Over the past few days, I've dug into not just the land's boundaries but the web of ties between the HOA, developers, and town officials, all tangled in a filthy political tapestry. Karen finishes her inspection and drives off, leaving dust and unease in her wake. I wait a few minutes, then step out of the shed. The land isn't a peaceful place anymore. It's a battlefield. My next move has to be calculated. I need more information, a stronger case. The documents in my hands are just the start. Somewhere in this stack is the key to stopping Karen and the HOA's land grab. I glance at the hotel in the distance. They think they've won, but they don't know who I am. A black man who won't bend, and I'll make them pay. The Oak Ridge Community Center feels like a blood-soaked arena as I push through the double doors. The black leather briefcase weighing on my shoulder is packed with meticulously organized documents, each page a bullet in the fight to reclaim my family's land. Land black folks sweated and bled to hold on to. The fluorescent lights overhead flicker incessantly, casting long, dark shadows across the room crammed with HOA council members and curious onlookers. Karen Harrington sits smugly at the head of the long wooden table, her pressed suit and elaborately styled hair exuding calculated control. She's always been the type to think rules are hers to twist, not follow. I remember past meetings, the way she'd corner neighbors with her saccharine voice, masking vicious intent, especially toward families like mine, black folks daring to own land among her elite white crowd. I want to talk about the hotel built on my family's land. I begin, my voice low and hard as steel, cutting through the stifling air. The room falls dead silent, whispers fading, replaced by a tension tight as a bowstring, ready to snap. I open my briefcase, spreading out the first set of documents. Weathered property maps from my grandfather's time, each one carefully preserved and notarized from 6 decades ago. Faded lines mark boundaries, land use rights, and historical agreements. Things set in stone half a century before this cursed HOA even existed. My fingers trace the faint markings, each line a story of my family, of black survival in a society hell-bent on erasing us. Karen Harrington raises an eyebrow just slightly, but I catch it. That tiny twitch says it all. She knows she's standing on quicksand. These documents, I continue, my voice steady but sharp as ice, prove the land under that hotel could never be transferred without my explicit consent. A black man you thought you could crush easily. I pull out a stack of photos. Images of the farm over the years, from my childhood to a few months ago, showing constant care, crop rotations, and my family's imprint on every inch. Each photo is dated, each one a nail in the HOA's coffin. An older woman in the back row leans forward. I recognize her as Evelyn Carter, a longtime resident known for fairness. Her eyes scan the documents, her expression shifting from curiosity to genuine concern. Karen tries to interrupt, her voice shrill. "Mr. Jackson, this isn't worth. I'm not done." I cut her off, my tone firm but controlled, refusing to let anger erupt. 2 decades as a data analyst taught me the power of calm in a storm. I see a few council members squirm in their seats, clearly uneasy as the truth starts to surface. The next document is a surprise blow, an environmental impact report I commissioned from an expert. It exposes fatal flaws in the hotel's construction, a drainage system that could ruin the area's groundwater, disturbed soil breaching county environmental codes. Every finding is backed by professional geological data. Evelyn raises her hand. Can you explain the environmental issues more? I step forward, breaking down each point, turning complex concepts into plain, undeniable truth. I don't want to confuse them. I want them to see the reality hidden by greed and prejudice. Karen's face is a storm now. Anger, fear, desperation swirling together. She knows I'm not just challenging the hotel. I'm exposing a calculated system of abuse. You can't just steal land, I say, my voice low but cutting like a blade. This isn't just about building. It's about ownership, family legacy, and community trust. Things you think a black family like mine doesn't deserve. A younger council member, Caleb, who I recall from past meetings, leans in. We need to ask more about these papers. I give a cold smile. Asking means they're listening. Asking means they feel the weight of what I've brought. Over the next 3 hours, I dismantle the HOA's arguments step by step. Each document, each photo, each legal reference builds an undeniable picture. I'm not just defending my land. I'm defending a principle, a declaration of war against those who think my skin color is reason enough to rob me. The room's atmosphere shifts. Council members who started out dismissive now look worried. Evelyn scribbles notes nonstop. Caleb pores over the environmental report with clear focus. Karen sits silent, her initial confidence crumbling by the minute. When I finish, the room crackles with a surge of hope. I haven't won yet, but I've planted seeds of doubt, seeds that will sprout into a storm questioning the HOA's actions. As people start to leave, Evelyn approaches me, whispering, "Those environmental reports are serious." I don't think the council knew what was really going on. I nod, gathering my documents, silently vowing. The real battle has only just begun. Outside, the afternoon sun stretches long shadows across the parking lot. My truck stands quietly, a reminder of the farm waiting for me to reclaim it. But everything's different now. This isn't just about land anymore. It's about justice, about a black man standing up to a rotten system. Karen lingers across the parking lot, staring at me, her eyes blazing with a mix of hatred and panic. She knows I won't stop. Not now, not ever. The next morning, old Isaiah Brooks from the neighboring farm knocks on my door right after breakfast. His trembling, age-worn hands push a thick paper envelope across the kitchen table. "You need to see this," he whispers, his deep voice heavy with secrets spanning decades. Inside the envelope is a collection of faded photos and handwritten notes, telling a story I never expected. Karen Harrington didn't just target my land. She has a decades-long history of land theft. The documents expose a pattern: manipulation tactics, backroom deals, and a systematic approach to seizing community land under the guise of area improvement, especially targeting black families like ours, people she thought couldn't fight back. I feel Lena's hand on my shoulder, her presence keeping me grounded. "What do you think?" she asks, her voice calm but firm. "These," I reply, carefully spreading out each page, "aren't just old papers. They're a map to Karen's whole dirty scheme." Isaiah sinks into a chair, his gaze distant. "She's been doing this for a long time," he says softly, "and nobody dared stand up to her." The first photo hits me hard. An aerial shot of Oak Ridge, probably from the early 1980s. Red lines meticulously mark land boundaries, but something's off. They don't match the official county records I've been studying for weeks. I remember when she first became HOA president. Isaiah continues, promising to make the community better, but better for who? Lena starts copying the documents, her movements precise and careful. Each page is a potential piece of evidence, each photo a weapon in our legal arsenal. A young woman passing by my window catches my eye. I recognize her, seen her at HOA meetings. She pauses, glancing at the house with a tense expression, then hurries off. Who's that? I ask Lena, but she's already noticed the girl's odd behavior. Isaiah leans in, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Some folks in the community are whispering. Not everyone backs Karen's plans, but they're scared. She has ways of making their lives hell if they speak up. I start connecting the dots. Each document tells a story of calculated manipulation. Land rezoning, subtle boundary shifts, mysteriously approved permits. Karen's been playing a long game, and my farm is just the latest prey on her list. A black family she thought she could erase with ease. We have to be careful, I tell Lena. This stuff is powerful, but we can't rush. One mistake, and she'll find a way to smear it all. The phone rings loudly, an unknown number flashing on the screen. Lena answers, her voice steady as a lake before a storm. The conversation is brief, cryptic, just a few disjointed words I can't make out. When she hangs up, her eyes shift, sharp, anxious, but tinged with hope. Someone wants to meet you, she says, her voice dropping like a whisper in the wind. Someone who knows about Karen's past dirty deals. Isaiah Brooks, still sitting there, cracks a faint smile, his old eyes glinting like they can see through time. Truth always finds a way out of the dark, he mutters, his raspy voice thick with meaning. I start organizing the documents, each page carefully tucked into clear plastic sleeves, like precious gems prepped for a life or death fight. Decades of my family's meticulous records are about to unleash their power. Karen Harrington thought she could brazenly steal everything just because we're black, but she doesn't know the storm that's coming. A storm called justice, and I'll lead it. Out there, a car glides past my house, slow like a predator stalking prey. Through the window, I catch a glimpse of a familiar face. The girl from yesterday's HOA meeting, her tense eyes scanning the house like she's expecting something terrible. What does she know? What's she afraid of? Lena grabs my hand, squeezing tight, her warmth spreading like a fire in the dark. We'll get through this together, she says, her voice solid as a vow. The documents before me aren't just paper. They're living proof, the roar of my ancestors against a corrupt system. They prove how Karen Harrington built her empire on systematic theft, prove she thinks she's above the law because of her white skin and power, and most importantly, prove that we, a black family she dismissed, will make her pay dearly. Isaiah stands to leave, but not before dropping one last line, like a prophecy from the past. Sometimes, the quietest ones hide the loudest stories. As he steps out, a thin sheet of paper slips from his worn coat, landing silently on the floor. Another mystery piece waiting for me to uncover. The next morning, I sit amid papers, old maps, and property records, turning them into a maze of information. My sharpest weapon in this war. Daniel Hayes, the lawyer I hired, sits across from me, his round glasses slipping down his nose as he studies intently. These land boundaries are trickier than I thought, he says, his finger tracing a line on a survey map from 8 decades ago. His voice a mix of excitement and tension, like a hunter spotting prey tracks. I feel a spark of hope from him, a rare light in the darkness engulfing my family. I recall community meetings, the way Karen Harrington looked down on us with a sneer, tossing snide remarks about outdated farming or land unfit for a civilized neighborhood. Her sleek suits and glossy nails were symbols of white arrogance, stark against my torn boots and calloused hands. But today, these hands will become tools to reclaim justice. Lena brings in coffee, her hand gently squeezing my shoulder. A small gesture, but enough to remind me that she understands the stakes of this fight. This isn't just about land. It's our history, the legacy of black folks who were chained, beaten, and denied the right to live. Daniel pulls out a stack of old county records, spreading out 5 maps from different eras. Look at this, he says, his voice urgent, hands aligning the maps to overlap. Each map tells its own story, but together, they unveil a chilling truth. Subtle shifts in land boundaries, cunning discrepancies the average person would miss. The HOA got too cocky, Daniel whispers, a cold smile creeping across his lips. They thought it was simple, but in legal land disputes, nothing's easy, especially when they target a black family to rob blind. We spend the whole day, nearly 10 hours, tearing through every document. Old property tax records, inheritance papers, even letters from 7 decades ago between my grandfather and county officials. Each page is a piece in the tangled puzzle of manipulation and corruption. Daniel's phone pings sharply. He checks it, his eyes lighting up. The local history society just got back to us, he says. They found land use records for this area from the 1920s. This could flip the board. I think of Karen, the way she always acts like she owns everything. Perfect lawns, glossy HOA newsletters, a strut like a queen patrolling her kingdom. But that kingdom's about to crumble under the weight of the arrogance and racism she built it on. We've got to be careful, Daniel warns, his tone stern. Tip our hand too soon and they'll cover it all up. I nod, fully aware of the dangerous game we're playing. This isn't just about winning. It's about exposing the filthy truth of a system rigged to crush people like me. Lena steps in with an old wooden box from the attic. I found this in Grandma's stuff, she says, setting it on the table, her voice trembling with excitement laced with nerves. Inside is another treasure trove. Property surveys, land transfer records, things most would have thrown out long ago. Daniel's eyes widen as he carefully examines each sheet. This could change everything, he mutters, his voice thick with awe. The late afternoon light fades, stretching shadows across the kitchen. Every document is a potential weapon, every map a battlefield waiting to be claimed. Karen thought she could steal our land, build that damned hotel, erase my family's legacy just because we're black. But she doesn't know how ready I am. The phone rings again from across the room. Daniel checks the caller ID, flashing a knowing grin. County Records Office, he says. They just dug something up from the archives. This could be the kill shot. I look out the window at the fields Karen tried to snatch. The land my family worked for 6 generations, now holding a secret, a legal shield stronger than any concrete she's thrown up. They underestimated me. I say softly, my voice low and menacing. And that'll be the biggest mistake of their lives. Daniel packs up his briefcase, carefully tucking everything into a secure folder, his eyes glinting with the resolve of someone fighting not just for justice, but for the dignity of the oppressed. We're not just fighting for land, Daniel says, his voice deep and weighty. We're fighting for justice. Justice a black family like ours has been denied too long. He leaves, and I stand in the kitchen as evening darkness slowly blankets the farm. In the distance, Karen Harrington's 5-story hotel looms like a monument to blatant greed, a symbol of white arrogance trampling my ancestors' legacy. But monuments fall, and this one will soon turn to dust by my hand. Our war's just beginning, but for the first time in 3 months since spotting that grotesque concrete slab, I feel a flicker, hope, fragile but fierce. The phone suddenly rings, an unknown number flashing on the screen like an invisible threat. Instinct tells me this call will turn everything upside down, like a stone dropped into still water. The dusty attic has always been a refuge for memories, but today it carries a different air, heavy, mysterious, like it's hiding secrets ready to erupt. Sunlight streams through a tiny round window, illuminating floating dust motes, each speck a silent witness to my family's history. Lena steps forward, her hands trembling as she lifts an old wooden box I've never seen, its edges worn, its brass hinges tarnished by time. I found this behind great-grandpa's filing cabinet, she says, her voice a mix of excitement and fear, as if she's just touched an unexploded bomb. There's something special about this box. I stand still, watching her slowly lift the lid. Inside is a meticulously preserved trove. Old land ownership papers, faded photos, and letters spanning centuries, all forming a chaotic puzzle waiting for me to solve. My grandfather wasn't just a farmer. He was a silent soldier, always preparing for war. The first document we pull out is a detailed property map, but not the usual kind. Tiny, sharp notes in my grandfather's handwriting crowd the margins, linking our land to a web of neighboring plots in a way that hints at a complex legal network. Look at this, I whisper, my finger tracing a jagged red line along the map's edge, my heart pounding like a war drum. That line ties our property to others like a legal net set long ago. Small, almost coded symbols mark specific spots. Lena leans closer, her eyes narrowing. It looks like survey markers, but odd, like they were deliberately placed. As we dig deeper, a pattern emerges. My grandfather meticulously logged every deal with local authorities, every land survey, every property transfer. He'd prepared for a battle that hadn't yet come in his time, a battle I now have to carry on. One document stops me cold. A yellowed letter from 1961, addressed to the County Land Registry. My grandfather's name sits proudly at the top, but the contents go beyond anything I'd imagined. It mentions an ancient land trust, a legal mechanism so intricate even modern lawyers would struggle with it. This isn't just ownership, I murmur, my voice shaking with astonishment. It's a legal shield, something he built to protect us, black folks deemed unworthy of owning land. Lena pulls out another sheet. A hand-drawn family tree, stretching far beyond relatives I know, with unfamiliar names tied to dates and places, weaving a network of overlapping land ownership. At the bottom of the box lies a sealed envelope. No address, just a vivid red wax seal stamped with my family's initial. My hands tremble as I break the wax seal, careful not to tear the fragile paper. Inside, my grandfather's distinctive handwriting emerges, each word etched with iron will. He wrote of a legal safeguard he'd set up, a trust passed down through 6 generations, only triggered under specific conditions that eerily mirror our current fight with the HOA. He knew, I say softly, my voice catching with emotion. Somehow he saw this coming. The letter doesn't just reveal the safeguard. It hints at a bigger story, about land rights, so-called community development, and a dispute stretching back before the HOA even existed. Each paragraph is written with precision, just enough to spark curiosity without laying everything bare. Lena looks at me, noticing my shifting expression. What are you thinking? I take a deep breath, my voice dropping like a vow in the dark. These documents don't just protect our land. They'll expose a bigger plot, a corrupt system targeting black families like ours to rob us blind. A series of photos slips from between the pages, aerial shots spanning decades. They show subtle changes, boundary shifts and untrained I would never catch. Grandpa documented it all, leaving a trail of evidence that could blow the HOA's current actions apart. One photo in particular chills me. Karen's family land from 4 decades ago with boundaries off. Not outright illegal, but blatantly suspicious. We've got to show this to Daniel, I say, gathering the documents carefully, my heart pounding. But Karen can't know we've found them, not yet. As if on cue, my phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. Some secrets should stay buried. The game just stepped into a new, deadlier phase. The wooden box seems to whisper tales of resistance, of legal moves calculated centuries ago, waiting for their moment to strike. My grandfather wasn't just a farmer, he was a strategist, a black man who foresaw the day people like Karen Harrington would try to erase us. Lena grips my hand, her eyes blazing. What's our next move? I look at the pile of documents, a cold resolve rising within me. Prepare to tear down this whole rotten system. The next day, Lena stands there watching me, her eyes a mix of worry and steel, like a warrior gearing up for battle. The local paper, Oak Ridge Sentinel, has long hinted at a bombshell story, and I know today's the day it breaks. I've spent 5 relentless months preparing, gathering every shred of evidence like a detective hunting a killer in the shadows. Old property maps, historical records, communication logs, all my weapons, telling the story of how the HOA, led by Karen Harrington, systematically planned to steal my family's land just because we're black folks daring to own what she thinks doesn't belong to us. The phone rings. It's Samuel Turner from Oak Ridge Sentinel. We're ready to run it, he says, his voice trembling with excitement and strain. But we've got to be careful. Karen won't take this lying down. I know the risks. A small town like Oak Ridge is a tangled web. Everyone knows everyone. Histories intertwine. And Karen's been an untouchable force for too long. She's bullied folks at community meetings, strong-armed small business owners, and always gotten her way, until she crossed me. a black man who doesn't know fear. Lena brews coffee, her hands steady but her eyes never leaving me. You sure? She asks, not doubting but standing with me. She knows how much this land means to our family. The first call comes minutes after the paper drops. Karen's voice slices through the line like a knife. You think you can humiliate me, you little black punk? She snarls. I've run this town for 4 decades. I stay calm, my voice ice cold. I'm not here to humiliate anyone. I'm taking back what's mine, what you had no right to touch. Local cafes turn into verbal battlegrounds. People once too scared to speak start sharing their own stories. Clarence Moore, the small grocery store owner, pulls me aside at the gas station. She tried to take my land 15 years ago, he whispers, his voice shaky. But I didn't have the guts to fight. Now you're making me ashamed of that cowardice. By noon, Oak Ridge News, the local TV station, jumps on the story like a kite catching wind. A young reporter, Sofia Alvarez, stands in front of our farm, microphone in hand, her voice firm on the air. A local black family is challenging the Oak Ridge Homeowners Association, she declares, alleging illegal land grabs and blatant abuse of power. Karen Harrington's response is predictable. She scrambles to call an emergency HOA meeting, inviting local media along. I know this ploy. She wants to control the narrative, paint me as a troublemaking black man in everyone's eyes. But this time I'm more ready than ever. Daniel Hayes, my lawyer, walks in with a thick briefcase, his sharp eyes glinting with vigilance. They'll try to smear you, he warns, his voice low like distant thunder. Brace yourself for their dirtiest tricks. The Oak Ridge Community Center is packed, the air thick like a blood-soaked arena. Folks who once bowed to Karen now eye her with suspicion, her power teetering, and she feels it as keenly as I feel my heart pounding. This is just a baseless attack. Karen roars, her voice echoing, clinging to her usual arrogance. This family wants to ruin our community's progress. A bunch of ungrateful blacks. But for every accusation she hurls, I've got proof to fire back. Property surveys from 1932, tax records, land maintenance logs spanning 6 generations. Each paper is a steel shield against her lies. Lena squeezes my hand, her warmth a reminder we're not alone. Our 17-year-old daughter, Nia, live streams the meeting on social media. Every moment beamed live for the world to see the truth. The community's watching, and they're starting to grasp the real nature of the progress Karen preaches. During a break, a local real estate broker, Victor Hayes, sidles up to me, his voice a whisper like he's afraid of being overheard. I've worked with the HOA for 10 years, he says, eyes darting nervously. Always knew something was off, but never had proof until now. By evening, the story's outgrown Oak Ridge. Regional news channels keep calling. Land rights groups take notice. What started as a small dispute has exploded into a broader movement, a declaration against injustice. Karen throws her last punch. A legal notice delivered, threatening to countersue. But it's flimsy, full of hollow bluster we both know means nothing. As the sunset bathes the farm in gold, I realize this isn't just about land. It's about standing up to a bully, protecting a black family's dismissed legacy, and proving one person with truth in hand can change the world. The phone rings again, this time a reporter from the statewide news network. We want to do a multi-part feature, she says, her voice brimming with excitement. Are you ready to tell your story? I look at Lena, and she nods, a small smile flickering with trust. Ready? I reply, my voice firm as a driven nail. We're ready. We had no idea this was just the beginning of a fight that would shake this community to its core, bringing justice where it's been denied too long. My fingers trace the faded lines of the property map spread across Daniel's conference table. The yellowed paper holds a power no one anticipated. Every crease and tiny note whispering of land rights older than most buildings in this county. Look at this, Daniel says, his voice dropping as if afraid someone might overhear this deadly secret. His finger points to a corner I'd overlooked dozens of times before. A tiny symbol, no bigger than a pinhead, hits me like lightning in the dark. It's not just a dot. It's a lifeline. Wetlands. A nearly invisible marker that changes everything. The Hotel Karen and the HOA brazenly built sits smack on a protected ecological zone. No permit in the world can save them now. Environmental regulations are concrete walls, unbreakable, unforgiving. I recall endless weekend walks on this land with Grandpa. Him showing me the subtle shifts in the soil, the fragile ecosystem outsiders would never notice. The land tells stories, he'd say, his voice warm and deep like the earth itself. You just have to listen close. Now those stories are about to roar in a courtroom, toppling a corrupt empire. Daniel pulls out a stack of documents. Satellite images, geological surveys, groundwater reports, each page a sword in our arsenal. The HOA thought they could flatten a black family's farm without a hitch, but they made a fatal mistake. They didn't bother to dig deep. They'll push back, Daniel warns, his gaze locking onto mine, both professional and deeply personal. He's not just a lawyer, he's fighting for something bigger than a case. Lena calls mid-meeting, her voice a mix of excitement and caution. The local environmental protection group wants to meet you, she says quickly. They've been tracking wetland violations in this area for years. Another unexpected ally steps from the shadows, like light piercing the night. I think back to Karen's old tricks. Aggressive meetings, tampered paperwork, bullying tactics that once worked until she met me. She treated community laws like a joke, thinking her position gave her limitless power. But power has limits, and hers is about to crash down like a landslide. The environmental rules are clear as day. Wetlands aren't just lines on a map. They're living ecosystems, guarded by state and federal laws that don't care about the authority of a self-appointed white HOA president. Daniel starts outlining potential violations, each word a hammer blow to the HOA's coffin. Fines reaching millions of dollars, mandatory restoration costs, even criminal charges for willful environmental breaches. I open my phone, showing Daniel photos I've taken over the years, small changes in the landscape, water patterns, vegetation, all proving a delicate ecological balance, making our lawsuit invincible. They didn't just build a hotel, I say quietly, my voice low with fury. They wrecked an ecosystem, and thought a black family like us wouldn't dare speak up. A courier arrives mid-meeting, delivering another batch of documents from the County Geological Survey Office. Each sheet adds armor to our legal defenses. Daniel calls an environmental law expert, confirmations piling up. The hotel isn't just an illegal structure. It's an environmental crime waiting to be exposed. My phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. Check your email, you'll want to see this. Short, cryptic, tantalizing. The email holds aerial photos pinpointing the exact wetland boundaries. Someone inside the system wants to help. Anonymous tips aren't just Hollywood cliches. Sometimes they're real lifelines. Lena steps in, bringing coffee and a stack of signatures from a community petition. Neighbors once silent are now speaking out, each signature a stab at the HOA's power. They thought no one would notice, Daniel says, spreading documents across the table, his voice sharp as a blade. But everyone sees it. They just needed someone to connect the dots. I think of Grandpa, of 6 generations of my family respecting this land. Understanding ownership isn't conquest but listening, preserving the balance between human ambition and nature. Karen saw land as a chance to plunder. We see it as a sacred duty. The pieces are falling into place, not with dramatic explosions, but with cold, methodical precision. Every document, every photo, every scientific report is a brick pried from the HOA's arrogant fortress. We're not just fighting a legal battle, we're telling a story of community, respect, and the realization that some things matter more than concrete and profit. The turning point isn't just coming. It's here, sharp and unstoppable. That morning, my hands tremble as I step into the courtroom. 7 months of relentless preparation leading me to this moment. A David versus Goliath battle to decide my family's farm's fate. The wooden benches creak under the weight of dozens of people. Local farmers, community members, and the curious. Karen sits 3 rows away, her pressed suit a shield hiding the truth, but I catch her fidgeting with her expensive glasses. A nervous tic she can't mask. She always thought laws were for others, not a powerful white woman like her. But today, the law won't bend. Daniel Hayes, my lawyer, leans in to whisper amid the courtroom's stifling air. "Stay calm, Jeremiah. We've got this," he says, his voice low but solid as steel, a lifeline pulling me from the edge of anxiety. 6 generations of my family's history hang in the balance. Sweat, blood, and dreams of black ancestors once in chains, now distilled into this do-or-die moment. The judge enters, her stern gaze sweeping the room like a razor. Judge Abigail Coleman is known for her no-nonsense style, having presided over hundreds of land disputes, but ours carries a different weight. I see it in how she fixes on the towering stack of documents Daniels prepared over 8 months. The court will hear closing arguments in Jackson versus Oak Ridge Homeowners Association. The bailiff announces, his voice echoing in the hushed space, a bell signaling the battle about to erupt. Daniel stands first, his sleek black suit exuding razor-sharp professionalism. "Your Honor," he begins, his voice booming like thunder. "This is not merely a land dispute. It's a systematic abuse of power, a blatant conspiracy to rob a black family of their heritage through filthy bureaucratic manipulation." He spreads out each piece of evidence. Property maps from my grandfather's era, preservation documents, specific clauses in the original community covenant that the HOA deliberately ignored. Every sheet is a fragment revealing a broader picture of corruption, a system designed to crush people like us, those they believe have no right to own land. Karen's lawyer tries to interject, but Judge Coleman shoots him a look sharp as a blade, silencing him instantly. I notice Karen's fingers tapping incessantly on her expensive leather briefcase, the first crack I've seen in her seemingly invincible armor. "Ms. Harrington," the judge calls her by name, her tone cold as ice. "How do you explain your organization building a hotel without a complete environmental impact assessment?" Karen responds quickly, her voice smooth as a rehearsed script. "We followed all standard procedures. That land was just what?" Daniel interrupts, his voice cutting like a sword. "Your Honor, we have evidence directly contradicting that claim." He presents a series of emails, exchanges between Karen and local officials, exposing murky backroom deals. Each message is a brushstroke in a portrait of intentional law dodging. I recall the night Lena and I stayed up poring over them, hours of relentless study, moments of despair mixed with hope, our entire lives now distilled into this legal battle. A local ecologist, Olivia Grant, is called to testify. Her report lays bare the severe damage caused by the hotel's hasty construction, the destruction of rare plant species, the risk of groundwater contamination, each detail a hammer strike against the HOA's coffin. Karen begins to unravel, sweat rolling down her forehead, her perfect facade fracturing before everyone's eyes. Community members who once trembled before her now watch with curiosity and a growing respect for our persistence. A black family daring to stand against an entire system. The climax arrives unexpectedly. An HOA board member, James Carter, takes the witness stand, his face uneasy like a man about to confess. His testimony shakes the room. Internal dissent, revelations that Karen acted without full board approval. "I can't stay silent any longer," he says, his voice quivering on the brink of breaking. "What she did was wrong. Wrong to the community, wrong to this family." Daniel's strategy becomes clear. This isn't just about winning a case. It's about exposing a pattern of systemic abuse, a plot targeting black folks like us to erase their land rights. 9 hours pass, witnesses come and go, documents dissected. The courtroom transforms into a stage of truth, each piece of evidence peeling away a layer of deception. Karen, once brimming with arrogant confidence, grows restless. The woman who thought she could level anything with power now facing the greatest challenge of her life. Judge Coleman doesn't rush. She reviews documents, asks piercing questions, listens to every statement with absolute focus. Her face is a legal poker game, no trace of emotion leaks through. The final minutes draw near, the courtroom holding its breath for the fateful moment. One last document remains. Daniel steps to the podium, his strides slow and deliberate. "Your Honor," he says, his voice low but resonating like a tolling bell, This final piece of evidence will prove the full extent of the HOA's wrongdoing. Karen's lawyer jumps up to object, but everyone knows this is the moment of truth. Nothing can stop it now. My steps tremble as I walk across the farm, not from fear, but from the weight of victory pressing on my shoulders. A victory wrested from the hands of arrogant white folks like Karen Harrington. Each step feels like a silent conversation with Grandpa, who used his meticulous care to protect this land through 6 generations. Lena walks beside me, her gaze sweeping over the reviving landscape. The cotton fields, once ravaged, now sprout new green shoots. Where the illegal hotel once stood tall, only foundation scars remain. A stark reminder of the war we've overcome. Daniel didn't just win a lawsuit. He exposed an entire network of corrupt local officials who thought they could trample the land of black families like ours. Karen's empire is collapsing. 5 city council members have resigned in disgrace, and investigations spread like wildfire. They didn't expect a black farmer to fight back. I mutter, clutching a fistful of red soil. The earth feels different now. Not just dirt, but a symbol of resilience, of a dismissed family rising against a system. Oak Ridge has changed. Neighbors who once bowed to the HOA now stand tall, sharing their own stories of oppression they'd endured in silence. Local news runs nonstop, from one article to the next report, inspiring others to stand against unjust land grabs. But this isn't just about victory. It's about safeguarding the legacy of black folks a society tried to erase. Grandpa's painstaking notes in old leather-bound journals became our secret weapon. Every hand-drawn boundary, every land-use note, more powerful than any modern legal document. Karen hasn't surrendered. Her final courtroom glare, cold, brimming with hatred, tells me this isn't the end. She's appealing, hinting at shadowy connections that might reopen the case. But we're prepared. Every potential attack has a counter waiting. The farm is no longer just land. It's a resounding message. Small landowners, especially black ones, can confront powerful entities. Persistence, careful records, and community support can defeat corruption. As the sunset paints the sky red, Lena squeezes my hand. "We did it," she whispers, her voice trembling with emotion. But we both know, the real work is only just beginning. Far off, a hawk circles above our land, a silent guardian watching over the peace we've won with blood and tears. Jeremiah Jackson's story isn't just a struggle to reclaim land. It's a mighty voice against injustice, corruption, and racism. Issues still simmering in today's society. From invaded cotton fields to a tense courtroom, we see how power can be misused to crush the vulnerable. Yet persistence, knowledge, and unity can turn the tide. This tale offers a simple yet profound lesson. Don't stay silent before wrong. Arm yourself with understanding and stand for what's right, for justice doesn't come on its own. It must be claimed. I'd like to note that this story is for entertainment and education only, not intended to discriminate, criticize, or defame any individual or organization, but to inspire through an artistic lens. What do you think of this journey? Leave a comment below sharing your thoughts, and don't forget to like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel to explore more meaningful stories together. Thank you for watching this story to the end. Wishing you a peaceful day, and see you in the next videos.